Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Ike Eisenmann, and we're very excited today to have welcome to the show one of the stars of the Disney classic, the Apple Dumpling Gang. He was also in one of the most fun movies of the 80s, Red Dawn, and also appeared with Ike in Return from Witch Mountain. Please help us welcome Brad Savage. Brad, thanks for joining us.
Hey, hello. Thank you for having me.
Before we get to Witch Mountain or Apple Dumpling Gang, and we will, I want to start by asking, I was going over your IMDb, and like Ike, you have like 1,000 credits, and you were like in everything. I'm always fascinated by kids who start so young, and I saw you were 7 years old when you had your first role in Circle of Fear. How was it for a 7-year-old to go before the camera at that time?
It was crazy. I mean, I don't know. But what's funny is my memories are not, unfortunately for you guys, my memories are a little fuzzy of all that time. I mean, it was literally something I started doing when I was like 2 years old, doing like commercial print work and commercials. And it's kind of when we moved to Los Angeles as a family from Detroit. And so I was, basically just kind of doing it from the very, very beginning of my childhood. So it just felt like second nature, really. It didn't feel like anything other than, what you do, basically.
Right, so this is like a normal routine just for you. Like this is what kids did. So
basically, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you have the same memories of that in a way.
Well, yeah, mine are a little crisper because I'm both blessed and cursed with ridiculously sharp memories going way back too far. So I remember everything about how I got started. But my father was in the business, which is why I got into it. So were either your parents involved in the industry or?
No, it was really, the story goes, and it was a story that my mom told for years. Was my older brother Mark, which I'm not saying it wasn't real. I'm just saying, I'm sure it was embellished through the years, as good stories are. Because I'm going to make up shit today. Like,
I hope so. I'll help you.
And there was Betty Davis. Anyway, there actually is a good Betty Davis story, but I won't go there. You do remember that?
And I've thought of this. I've thought of this story. I'm sorry, I might press you on this one because it's kind of crazy. Anyway, go ahead.
It's really big. We'll get into that. So my brother who's 7 years older, was just a instant performer as a little kid, and I think both my parents had it in them that they were into the arts and like they never pursued it as as in their high school or college or whatever. But basically, the story goes, my mom took my brother to see a musical, and he was, like 5 years old, and he was standing, by the end of the show, he was standing on his seat, singing along with the entire, show. And it was like, okay, which is great. And he had like a 6-octave range voice, which I don't even know what that means, but I'm sure it was real. I'm sure it happened. And and still is a very talented guy. So he really wanted to do something. He wanted to perform. He looked to my mom and said, "Mom, you got to get me on that stage," which, it just feels like a TV movie, but I'm sure some parts of it happen. So they were auditioning for the national touring company of MAME was coming to Chicago or Detroit, wherever we were at that time. And they wrote a letter, in his handwriting, he wrote a letter to the producers saying, and a tape. And I made an audio tape, and they sent it to the producer, and he said, I want to be in MAME. If you don't like my voice, please send back the tape. And so that was the little letter thing, which, fan letters to Ike. I mean, this all connected, these like handwritten letters. Anyway, they they came to Detroit. They sent him a letter saying, "We love your voice. When we get to Detroit, we want to meet you." He went in, they auditioned, they fired the other boy and hired him. Again, that's just how the story goes. I'm sure he had outgrown the role or something nice happened, hopefully. But they did. Mark got the job and they went on tour, and sort of the whole family went on tour he ended up doing 7 different productions of Auntie Mame or Me around the country. Or the National Touring Company did a thing in Hawaii, and just through the years, basically. But at the end of the first tour, he did a Vegas thing with Juliet Prowse. It was all these different, Joanne Worley, all these famous, memes from that era, which would have been the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And we ended up in LA basically after the first tour. And so we went in and got an agent. I was 2 years old at the time. My sister was like 5 or 6. And so we all went into Mary Grady, who was the first agent I think that we met. And she took us all. And of course, thinking that my brother and sister would work, I was just the little one, and we all just started booking commercials right away, basically, because we're, fresh faces from out of state. And also, it was an era that was just not as much competition, I don't think, back in those days.
I totally agree. Yeah, it was a small, I call it, it was a small pool of performers of our age. So they needed to kind of rotate around them a little bit more frequently. So yeah, having somebody brand new, I think it was the same thing for me. I was another new, fresh face as well. So it worked out that way for me too.
Yep, absolutely. So we just basically stayed. My brother ended up, still going on a bunch of he did mostly musicals and live theater. But my sister and I got a little more into TV and film because, we were here and we weren't although I did do one thing. I think it was San Francisco, or maybe I think it was San Francisco, that I did one version of Mame where I got to play Peter, the son at the very, very end, the very last scene, just running up on stage and bowing and one little final scene. But I got to do live theater, and that was Joanne Worley. That one was, which was awesome.
Oh, well. Well, I read, speaking of San Francisco, I read that the Streets of San Francisco, Emergency, Marcus Welby, all the big shows of the 70s, but you also had a regular role in Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice with a young Jodie Foster. What your memories of that show?
I do have some memories of that show. It was a fun, again, those are the days, because I'd been working quite a bit by that time. And so we got to a point where, you never really made any money as a kid actor in those days, but you could request your own studio teacher. So we had a couple of great teachers we worked with through the years, which really were just, they were our saving, for me, they were really a saving grace through all of that, because, parents and family and everyone's got their own stuff going on. The teachers were there. They were your welfare workers, and then also their teachers. So for me, Jewel Anderson was my sort of go-to teacher. I don't know if you remember Jewel. She was just the dream. She was just amazing. But on that one, it was Betty King was the teacher. And we got to know her as well, who was just this kind of hippie. She lived up in Topanga Canyon, and we remember visiting. She had a pyramid chair, and got a lot of really cool stuff for the 70s. And Jodie, I think had Betty as well at that point, because sometimes we worked together. Jodie and I did on a movie later, and we each have brought our own. Yeah, we each had our own teacher. She brought Madame Cabaz from her high school. She went to the French school in LA. Was it it was the French word for school, high school, whatever it is, I can't remember. Anyway, private school, and she brought her own teacher from her own, it was actually the principal of that school. But for this one, it was Betty King, and she was, we just had it was, again, this is great memories of hanging out with Jodie, and that was our second job together, because we had worked on an episode of Ghost Story with Melvin Douglas back when.
Wow, yes, I remember that.
Ghost Story was only on for one season, and it was just one of those weird shows in the 70s. But Jodie, I mean, was just amazing and just so smart and so, such a cool human. But yeah, I mean, on the show itself, it was Robert Urich, I think,
Right, yeah.
and David Huddleston maybe was the other dad, was maybe my dad. But yeah, I mean, it was a sitcom. I think it was one of my first like actual sitcom experiences where you're, rehearsing all week and then shooting on at the end of the week. And that was a really cool introduction. And again, I'd done some theater already, so I had some background of live audience stuff, which I think for me was probably the most fulfilling performance stuff. I think as an actor, as a kid, just kind of being able to do it in front of an audience and getting response and getting reactions. And so I did do some theater later on as a young, teenager and young adult, and that was always kind of some of the most fun stuff for me.
So you felt that then? You felt that the joy, I guess, the immediacy of being on stage as opposed to being in the camera. You weren't like nervous at that age?
I mean, you are for the first few times, and then you just like deal with it, So I didn't usually get all freaked out. I remember having, butterflies the first few times doing the theater stuff, but it was just kind of like, I mean, you get pumped, you get excited,
right.
But it's not, wasn't ever something that kind of freaked me out basically, or shut me down. And in fact, that was sort of my introduction, that's what it got me the most fun. So as I segued out of acting and got into just becoming an adult or young adult, I got into music and started playing in bands, and that was the kind of the Jones that you can fulfill by doing live performances. And it's like you have an audience, and as a musician you're working on the same character, if you will, like you're still just trying to get better at what you're playing and what you're doing. So that was always kind of a good fulfillment, a way to fulfill my needs.
You see, that's always fascinating me, because I've never met a performer that really was a true performer that did not want to be in front of a live audience. And I couldn't stand it. I was terrified. I hated it. I loved my film and TV work because I got a second take if I screwed up, and the pressure was just too much for me. So the sitcoms I did were incredibly stressful. They were fun to do from a different perspective, but I was just like, I've got to block this audience out as much as I can, because it's just going to overwhelm me and I'm not going to handle it too well. Right. So there you go. But that's the difference. Yeah. But
you do get second takes on in at least at sitcoms.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I don't want to make it sound so hard edged, but no, it did not fulfill me. I was happy working for the audience or the crew, because that worked for me. But anyway,
that's so funny. Yeah, no, that's cool.
Well, I'll move on. I'm going to ask you about your music too in a little bit, but let's move on to Apple Dumpling Gang. I just rewatched it. I still enjoyed it. I forgot how much I enjoyed it rewatching it in anticipation of you coming on. Such a fun movie. What surprised me was, for a Disney movie of the 70s, there were a lot of risque parts.
Yeah. There was like, the unmarried sort of romance going on with Bill Bixby and who was the
Susan Clark.
Susan Clark, yes, absolutely.
And they talked about the bed the whole time. That was the whole
right. The big brass bed. Yeah. And she comes in and kicks ass in the bar and all that. I mean, there's some cool stuff. That I mean, again, like, way more than me about that childhood being a Disney kid. It's like it's a magical thing. It's a thing. Yep. That really, like, everyone is just positive and joyful, and it's like I really just always had good times and fond memories. Apparently, you learn later that how cheap Disney was. Like they never paid anybody, and apparently they were really, really tough, at different eras or whatever, but are still kind of famous for not ponying up, the big bucks. But as a kid, you don't care. It doesn't mean anything. Like whatever. It's as
I
far
was
as
in the same boat you are. You were. I often say I work for Disney for basically minimum wage, which is SAG scale plus 10%, which is it's more money than actual minimum wage. Let's be honest, but still,
Right.
They never paid anything
ever. And then also our agents are. Yeah.
I was going to say, were you under contract with them? Because obviously you did You never were.
No, never.
Oh
never.
my gosh. See, that's so interesting because they ended up offering me a 3-year contract within 2 weeks of working on Witch Mountain. And of course, I didn't know how this stuff worked either, but they negotiated my entire 3 years, no matter what I did. So by the time I did Return from Witch Mountain, I was still doing that for scale plus 10%. And that was a sequel to a very successful film,
yes.
which, and there was nothing I could do. I was tied to a contract.
So I worked probably a third of the time of the days, shoot days that you did, and I probably made double what you made.
There's absolutely no doubt, especially if you weren't tied to a contract, because then each one was fresh. But anyway, I had to throw that in there just to confirm.
That's so true. It's so true. And also, I mean, just not to speak ill of the dead, but my former agent, Mary Grady, bless her heart, was amazing, but never negotiated above whatever they offered. She never went back to them and said, no, he's been doing this now for whatever. Literally just took it. I mean, it was like, oh, okay. Which, again, I that in hindsight, you go, what? But at the time, we were fresh, kind of fairly new California, new to the business, and just like, okay, it was still more money than anyone was ever used to making. So it's all relative, but it's just agents, we weren't with Iris Burton, unfortunately, who apparently was, she was the tough one. She was the, she would apparently fight a little more harder for people, but whatever. I mean, so that movie was just, again, it was a blast. It was, you're literally playing cowboys, which I love to do anyway. So you're on a Western town, you're running around, the kids, Clay Anderson was the older boy, he hadn't worked much, but he was an actual roper and an actual cowboy. He grew up on a farm. So he was like actually legit. And was a really cool kid. And then and the little girl, Stacy, was her very first job. She was her mom was just so impressed and excited that this kid had gotten this job, that she kind of delicately put it, she kind of just completely let Stacy do whatever she wanted. It was literally just, she completely just spoiled the kid to a point where people were just like, I mean, it was a little tough because the kid was, she was just like 6 years old and going, woohoo, so she was very demanding little beast, but no, she was fine. I mean, she didn't work after that much. I don't think. I don't remember.
Next week's guest, by the way.
Oh shit! Please give her my love. No, this was 40 years ago. I think we've all grown up a little bit since then. So,
did you have the same? Like, I know Ike had mentioned before that he was obsessed. He wanted to work for Disney. Did you have the same feelings at that time?
I mean, I was just a fan as a kid, but it wasn't like Ike. It wasn't like Ike, Jones or that. It wasn't. I was just kind of having fun. And but once I got there, I mean, obviously, it's just, as I said, everybody was just smiles and friendly, and you walk down Dopey Drive and Disney whatever, and everyone's just like, hey, it's like family, really. It wasn't like, I didn't get that vibe on other sets per se. I mean, you do, because especially when you're on location or something and working with people, you definitely bond like no other kind of relationships, right? I mean, it's that tight kind of close grouping, and everybody is on the same boat. Didn't seem like they worked as many crazy hours. They probably did, but we were kids, so they had to cut us off after 8. So I think we kind of got the best of both worlds for that.
I'm so glad to hear you say that about the family environment, because that was my total experience there and everything that I did. And looking back on Apple Dumpling Gang and checking out the credits, you worked with everybody I worked with on Witch Mountain. So, and it was released in 75. Witch Mountain was released in 75. So I'm I'm curious when you shot it, because I know we shot Witch Mountain in April and May of 74. So obviously everyone couldn't be working on the same film at the same time. Did you work over the summer of 74, or do you remember?
Yeah, no idea. I have no idea.
Okay.
But I would assume it was somewhere in that, probably in that same time frame. I mean, I don't remember it being a summer gig. But again, it was outdoor, it was the same kind of it was just, I have no idea. So I'm not
that's okay. But
I'm not trying to make it up.
You were clearly on the lot. Do you remember, was that a fresh set for the movie, or do they use back lot?
They used their back lot.
More stuff.
They definitely built more stuff, like interiors and stuff.
And the bank had to be, custom made for the film, I'm sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that was all on the back lot. That was all pretty much Disney back lot. We did stuff at the ranch, I think, too.
I recognize a ranch, and it looked like you had at least another.
Yeah, there was, I think,
location.
one other. Yeah, I think there was one other town. We went up somewhere up in like Northern California or something, but not too far. It wasn't like a full-on location that I remember. It was more just kind of, in and around LA, or, the outskirts or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like Fraser Park is close enough to do, like, because I've done several shows that were there,
Oh, okay. Yeah, that could have been that too. I need to have you to help fill in the gaps. Is what it is.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll just interject this very quickly. The hardest work, I wrote a memoir about my career, and Jonathan and I talk about it all the time. But the hardest thing for me to do was to reverse engineer my career, because you look at the IMDb list of everything, all the dates are release dates.
Right.
And when you try to figure out when you actually shot something, that was so much work for me. And I had some shows that crossed over where I'd like finish shooting one thing, was shooting something else when the other thing was on the air. And so and I had to jog my memory quite a bit too. But Witch Mountain is burned in my consciousness. It's been that way forever, because it was such a big deal for me. So it really imprinted on me, the time frame, time of year, and all of that. But yeah, that's the crazy stuff, is trying to really remember when you worked on it versus when you got a chance to see it.
When it got released. I've actually talking with my brother and sister about that in general, and trying to find a way to go back and kind of piece together the chronology of everything, and when we did stuff and where, because we all worked and we're all in different, time zones and eras and all that, and different genres, really. I was wondering, like, does SAG keep records of all of our contracts? Because that would have been a way to go back and go, because I don't know how many commercials my mom says hundreds, and it was over 100, but I don't know the exact ones, because you just they come in. There's certain ones that you have memories of. I actually, not to get off too topic, or not off the track, but I got an email from either Bob Bill Holmes is a good friend of ours, an audio voiceover guy who's really close with Robbie Rist, and Rob. It was either Rob or he sent a link on YouTube of me and Rob, because Robbie and I were really close friends growing up as kids, and in fact, we both auditioned for the Cousin Oliver role. It was down to he and I. We both screen tested, went to the Brady house, shot our scenes at the Brady house. We were like really close, almost best friends at the time. And then, I didn't get the job. That was one of the ones that was like, what? I looked like them. You
were.
I had hair.
I could see.
Come on. It would have been great. But that was actually Sherwood Schwartz called my mom when they decided to say, we picked Rob. We could have tossed a coin, of course, but because they were both so great. But we picked Rob because he looked different. He didn't look like the rest of the family. He looked like, just so it was more of that kind of vibe. And Robbie was perfect for that. And I'm so glad I didn't kill that show. But anyway, Rob, so I get this email, and it's a link to a video that I made in that same era, like right in that early 70s. And it was Robbie and I playing brothers, which we were both the same age, and we both about the same height, and both looked completely different. And it was and it was a half-hour anti-smoking video that was shot in the Brady house. Okay, so it's like all their sets, it's the Brady Bunch house, but our parents were Tom Bosley and Marion Ross from Happy Days. Like, why? It made no sense. And it was just this lamely written, poorly written sitcom kind of vibe, because and we're Robbie and I are brothers, and we find the dad is hiding his smoking, and he throws it out the window, and we grab and we find a cigarette, and and Rob takes a puff, and because it's this anti-smoking thing. I have zero memory. I mean, like, no memory of it whatsoever. It's one of those things. We shot it probably. I don't ever, my mom, I reminded her, and she was like, and she thought that it was one of the things we didn't even audition for. It was just the casting director just called everybody and said, oh yeah, here, I got this gig. It's like an ad, gig, like a commercial gig, but a long form. And we must have shot it over a weekend when they weren't shooting the Brady Bunch, because it was literally their backyard and all their sets and everything. I asked Rob about it a few months ago, and he was like, oh yeah, I remember because I got to smoke. He was like, he was like 8 years old, and he got to take a puff of a cigarette, and it was like, ooh, it was a big memory of that. So anyway, funny stuff, and weird how it comes and goes. But so yeah, that's my story. I'm
coming back to Apple Dumpling. I want to ask you about, you had some big names there: Bill Bixby, Don Knotts, Tim Conway, and Slim Pickens too. I mean, were you aware of any of them when you shot?
I actually was. I mean, first of all, I was a big fan of Bill Bixby's, and he was such a. I'd worked with him once before as well, or after. Actually, I worked with him after, but he was just one of the most warmest humans, and just such a real life guy, like just like down to earth is the right way to do it, and genuine, and just everything. I can't say enough good things about the man. He was really genuinely one of the best sort of dad figures I've ever worked with. Taught us magic tricks and hung out with us, and was just a really good guy. In fact, I do have a memory of being on the lot, and I'd just gotten booked for it, I guess, because I'm walking down the lot, and he saw me from across like a street away, and I was with my mom, and we're walking, and he went, "Brandon," and he comes like running over to me. He thought I was Brandon Cruz. He thought, wow. Yeah, because I looked so much like Brandon at that. I was a couple years younger, but I'd seen, look and, short and all that. And so then he saw it and he was like, oh, who are you? But we were then introduced as, we were going to be working together on the Apple Dumpling Gang. But it was one of those weird, memories that you have that just stick in your head.
Yeah, sure. Wow.
So he had really bad eyesight, but other than that, he was a great guy.
I'm glad to hear that he's what he seems. Anyway.
He really was. Don Knotts and Tim Conway, the best. Don Knotts was shy and kind of quiet and really super funny and nice, but not like not outgoing, not what I would say an extrovert at all. Tim Conway, total nut job, totally just funny and wacky and just remember all kinds of fun antics going on around the set. And then Don Knotts, I remember showing up for the screening, and he walked in and he had his whole like family behind him, and it was like 8 kids. I'm making it up. I have no how many, but it was like 6 or 8 kids, and they were all like one a year older than the other, and they all like followed him in because he was very just not that not that he ever played like crazy outgoing, but he was Mr. Talented, Mr. Rip. No, what was he? Mr. Limpet. I mean, Don Knotts. I mean, he's like he was like wacky and zany, not at all in person. He was very calm and kind of demure, but really cool. But anyway, yeah, the whole cast. Slim Pickens. I do have he was, also just amazing guy. And we had a few scenes together. I got to kick him in the leg and all that stuff. He was just told the story. I'm sure he told it, in his life, but he was running away, like, or sneaking away from his parents to go be in the rodeo because he wanted to ride bulls and stuff as a kid, and his parents wouldn't let him, so he had to come up with a stage name for so that he could work, as riding these bulls and not have his parents know. And he asked, well, what's a good stage name? He didn't know what's a stage name. And I guess the guy that was signing him up said, well, when it comes to stage names, there's mighty slim pickings, just meaning like, there's not a lot of choices. And he went, I'll take it. So that's how he became.
That's great.
Slim Pickens, which was great.
Yeah, I got to work with him twice on 2 different projects, and oh my God, he was just so much fun, and that's who he was. He was that guy. He didn't have to do anything. He just said the words, and that's how amazing he was.
I
loved him.
His absolute that was just how he did it. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the director. It was Norman Tokar, I believe. Sorry, hold on. Yeah, Norman Tokar was the director. Do you work with Norman too, or no?
I know I work with Norman. I don't know on what, but he might have done some other Disney things.
Yeah, I'm sure, and he did a bunch of episodic stuff too. I think.
A lot. Oh yeah, a lot.
He was like a really gruff guy, but with a big heart. You know what I mean? And so he was also, and then he hired me for No Deposit, No Return, which is the next movie I did for them with Kim Richards. So remember, Kim and I did that other little one together. But no, he again, just those kind of people that know how to work with kids that aren't, yes, he was gruff, but he was also, really just a good, nice human. When I was doing No Deposit, No Return, my grandfather was having open heart surgery one week, and I was very close with him, and I was kind of distracted apparently, and not paying attention, or just in a bad headspace. And it's just a weird memory, and it's just a weird memory. He took me into his dressing room, Norman Tokar, and started unbuttoning his shirt. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And he just showed me his scar of he had open heart surgery.
Wow.
I just want you to know this happens. And he buttoned his shirt back up just for nothing happened. But I remember, it was just to make me feel, and I remember it totally making me go, oh, okay. So it's not, I was so concerned about my grandfather and worrying, how he was going to get through it. So pretty cool.
They were the directors that really knew how to work with children were always very special to me, because it seemed like there were a couple that I worked with that they had no clue how to deal with children whatsoever. And one of the things I hated more than anything, and I don't know, this is a random memory as well, but there was this one director, I worked with him on a couple of projects, and he liked to position me in front of the camera. If I wasn't in the right spot, he'd grab me by the shoulders and shove me around and move me like a piece of furniture. And I finally had to say, please don't touch me. Just tell me where to move, and I'm happy to do it. It's no problem. An inch this way, an inch that way. It's no problem. And he got it and paid attention to it. After
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, thankfully. But it was so weird how some of those people they just didn't know how to deal with children. We were somehow different,
it's really hard. I could say as an adult and moving into directing, my partner and I have done 50, 100 commercials and a lot of stuff for Mattel, and we will get you book these kids, and it's 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds riding little carts, little go-karts, or little little toys. And we have one in particular where my partner Greg is on the blowhorn, because it's this big wide shot and all these kids and parents and fake parents, and they're all right. And these kids, when they're 2 or 3, they don't, these cars have motors on them, so they just push a button, and so it's constantly bumping into PAs and cameras, and just these kids, they don't. And my Greg, my partner going, come on, it's like started getting and us getting frustrated, and then going, wait, they're 3. They're like, they have no clue. They're not. I mean, obviously when you get older and you've been working around the biz a little bit, they get a little more seasoned. We got more seasoned, but yeah, it's tough. You have to have a different touch I didn't use that word. You have to have a different approach when it comes to working with little kids. You just do.
Yeah, no doubt.
Were you upset not to be in the Apple Dumpling sequel?
I was pissed.
I was
pissed. The Apple Dumpling Gang rides again, and I'm
Right.
like, wait, what? I think I went and saw it in theaters. Like, wait, did they get new kids? Like, what the hell did they do? Because in the movie, we had a scene where we found the gold nugget, right? And we're all celebrating at a restaurant. And Don Knotts and Tim Conway, we'll call them the Apple Dumpling Gang. Like the kids were the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Right.
Don Knotts and Tim Conway were the hole in the wall gang. Just for clarification, just so it's here for posterity. They were not the Apple. No, I think I was a little upset for a minute, but I got over it.
You did a lot of things with Disney. I saw Ike and I had been talking about it. I just watched on YouTube the Christmas in Disneyland, and I love seeing those old Disney specials.
Oh, sorry, I'm swearing. I don't know.
Art Carney, Glenn Campbell, Sandy Duncan, and you sang. So
I sang. That was actually really fun. A fun gig. That was a really fun gig. It was Marty Pasetta was the producer director, and he was like a big time live TV guy, and so he did all the Oscars every year. He always produced the Oscars, and it was Art Carney. I mean, come on, like that. And Sandy Duncan was amazing, but most of our scenes were with Art Carney, and he was older by that time, so he wasn't necessarily as friendly as they might be. He was a little, and I'm sure he was like, what the hell, because it really was a kind of a cheesy TV special kind of thing, and it was supposed to be live, and it wasn't live, but it was kind of supposed to have that feel of being live. So it definitely was cool. And they shut down Disneyland. We got to shoot in Disneyland for at nights and things, and that was kind of cool. That was really cool.
That's awesome.
My sister Tracy and I did a commercial at Disneyland once for, I don't even remember what a product was, but we were on the Matterhorn, and we were on the front two cars of the Matterhorn, and we just just kept riding and riding. And it was still, the park was open, so they're letting people in, the cars behind us, but every time his car would stop, they'd be like, nope, and they'd only let people in behind us because we were in the shot when they're coming around, with the one big splash. And that was, again, like, how cool is that? Just to be
awesome.
just to have that, even though it's silly, but it was good.
And then we turned from Witch Mountain. That's when you and Ike met, I'm assuming. So I have to ask, did Ike treat you nicely?
Of course, absolutely. Come on. I mean, we weren't allowed to eat at the same table, and we weren't allowed to actually look at him ever.
No eye contact. That was the only thing I had. I didn't get paid, but I was alled to say no eye contact.
He had that in his contract, but whatever. We all got past that. No, of course. I mean, because we were friends. We weren't like close buddies, but we were friends. We were hanging out, and I was friends with you and your brother, and so we were, we absolutely knew each other from working the biz and all that. Mm-hmm. So that was it was awesome.
It was nice, but I actually didn't get to work with you very much.
Oh, you're right. It was mostly with Kim.
Yeah, because our like Kim, Tony and Tia get separated early in the film, and I was with Christopher Lee and Betty Davis most of the time, and then you were with Kim most of the time, and then we converged towards the end. Yeah. So it's like you were on set, I wasn't on set, or I'd watch you guys work. But man, that was really, I just thought that was a really fun film. I mean, I enjoyed doing Witch Mountain, but it was just a playground, and all you guys were fantastic. I mean,
we got
Jeffrey
to do,
and Christian, and
they're all good friends that we all became really good friends on that shoot. Christian and I stayed really close for many years. We're still in touch, and Jeffrey too, actually. Poindexter, he doesn't go by Poindexter anymore. He can't.
Probably not.
Jonathan something Yothers, Tina's brother.
I know, but I never knew his real name because he went by Poindexter.
I think it was Jonathan, it was a blast, and stunts and fun, weird. We got you guys did that too a lot, but we got getting in the harnesses and getting pulled up over jumping the fence and on the van flipped over and we're spinning around, which was shot right side up. So they just put stuff on our hair to make it stick up. So yeah, really, those are just some really fun, crazy days. And getting the fake. Do we have to give it for that one? For the Apple Dumpling Gang, I know, and No Deposit. I know I did it twice. I might not have had to do it for Return for Witch Mountain, but it was having the plaster cast made of your face. Did you ever have that?
I never.
Oh my
did
god!
That
Oh my
for
god!
Any reason? What was it? What was the reason?
So they could make a doll out of your face, out of your body, and your body, and put it in in the car. In the Apple Dumpling Gang, we're riding down the gold cart or the mining cart that goes through the city and flying all around.
Yeah.
The shots of us all, and it's just dummies basically that they made of us with our faces cast out of clay.
Oh, that's
they
awesome.
did it out of clay, and then they pull it for you. You have to sit there with straws in your nose and wait for like 30 minutes for it to get set, and then every now and again you just freak out because you're just like, what? It's just like, it was kind of traumatizing for a little kid, but the end result is they then pour from that mold, then make a mask of your face and put it on a dummy and use it as a prop basically, or use it for shots. But that leads me to Lynn Reynolds. Come on. I mean, Lynn, and of course, Bob Schiffer, who was the head of the makeup department. Lynn Reynolds was the sort of key makeup man he must have been he was on everything I ever worked on there. I mean, I don't know about the Christmas and Disneyland stuff, but like he was a fixture. He was their go-to guy. And again, those are the people you spend so much time with every day because you'll see them every single day in the chair, and then their touch-ups, and it's the makeup man, the hair, those kind of people you really bond with, especially when you do movie after movie, several projects with them. Lynn Reynolds, again, just one of those great people that I always remember, and he would mess with you, and he was funny and goofy. But
he was hilarious. I mean, he had more jokes, and he played practical jokes on a lot of people. I don't know if he did anything. The hand cream. Yes,
the cream.
Yes, the miracle hand cream.
Yes.
I saw him pull that on Witch Mountain on a grip.
Yep.
I'll try to tell the story really fast because it really is hilarious.
It's the best.
He set it up for weeks.
Right.
It was 2 weeks of production where he would talk about he's got this new invention, this miracle hand cream that coats your hands and the grips, all the guys who handle the equipment and pull cable and all that. You won't need gloves anymore if you use this stuff. It's the answer to all your problems. And he had other members of the crew who would go to him after lunch and put on some hand lotion, and they'd say, thanks, man, this stuff's fantastic. It's fantastic. And he was setting up this one guy who was very nervous about it and skeptical, but he finally said, okay, I'll try it. I'll go for it. So everyone's watching from the lunch tables. And basically what Lynn did was he had all this special surgical adhesive and all these sticky things that he gave to this guy that started to dry on his hands until his hands stuck together. And he could not pull them apart. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. And he would go, oh, no, here. And he'd hand him tissues.
And so you can wipe it off with this, and the tissues would shred. And then he'd say, if you put this on, this will take it off. And it just cemented everything together.
Until he finally stuck.
And with the guy, the crew member I was with, he was massive. He was this huge guy, and he got so angry he started chasing Lynn around the set, said, I'm gonna kill you, get this off me. He completely panicked and freaked out, and Lynn finally said, okay, I promise, joke's over. Everyone laughed. He knew it was a joke, and finally gave him some acetone or something like that so he could get his hands apart. But oh my god,
it was essentially the same story, because he did that. He'd do that every movie, or with
every movie.
He must have been. He would pick the biggest, roughest, toughest guy that he hadn't met already on the show before.
So this guy was his first Disney.
It was his first Disney movie, and so he would play that over and over. I mean,
wow,
the best practical Joker ever.
He was amazing. He was amazing, and he looked like a Disney character because he.
Didn't he have the big mustache?
The handlebar mustache. Yep. He looked like he was a member of a barbershop quartet. That's what I always thought.
Totally.
Wow.
He's like, this is how you make up a teenage actor, and he'd grab your hair and just like, blah, 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 and it just, just great stuff like that.
It was a wonderful way to start the day. Really, it kind of got you ready to go to work. So yeah,
Totally.
boy, he was
Totally.
fantastic. Anyway, glad you brought him up. That's
fantastic. Oh yeah. Oh, he's one of those fixtures. And then I can segue into Bob Schiffer, who was the head of makeup. He was the head of the department. Robert Schiffer. He was the statelier, more kind of very handsome, late 60s, probably late 50s, maybe, could have been 40s, but when we were kids,
sure,
how old he was, but I think he was in his probably early 60s. Very handsome man. Do you remember Robert Schiffer?
I don't think I worked with him that much. He was
yes, you did. He
worked with the stars.
He was Betty Davis's private makeup man. He stepped back into the chair, if you will, to make up for Miss Davis, because it was Betty Davis. It was, it was one of the biggest stars, I think, right? I mean, it's just whatever, just a legend, right?
Yeah.
So is that the story that you were gonna remember a little bit or no?
I don't know. So I'm gonna let you decide.
Story. Well, I don't
what you want to tell.
I don't want to be too but basically the story was I had gotten to be good friends with Christian, right? And Jutner, and his mom was, I don't know, be delicate. Basically, his mom was seeing a producer on the movie who had been there forever. It might have been a clandestine relationship, so I might be speaking out of school, which I will be for the rest of the story.
Everyone knew about it. It wasn't that clandestine.
Oh, okay.
I knew it was going on.
You knew it. Okay, so there was a relationship happening, and basically it was the wrap party. After the wrap party, this producer comes to my friend's mom and is just like white as a ghost, and he's just like, oh my god, and like, what happened? Robert Schiffer had come to him, and he was West Coast going, I don't know what to do. He went to his producer, because basically Miss Davis at the very, very end, after they'd wrapped at the wrap party, went back into Bob's office and said, I always like to keep things professional. And again, this is all hearsay. I wasn't there. We don't know. But so, I always like to keep things professional. But now that we're wrapped, and she apparently revealed herself to him and to entice him to have a little tete-a-tete with him at that moment, right then and there in his makeup room. And and it was Betty Davis, who was 90 or something. I don't know, but apparently he was very awkward, and he was just like, and I guess he just kind of bowed out and then went and of course told everybody. So it's just,
I do see. I remember hearing about this, through the grapevine, because it spread like wildfire. But
I'm sure.
Look, she was always a wild lady, and I don't doubt there's some truth to it.
I would think so. But, she was, for us though, she was nice, and she was always a little randy and a little funny, but she was Miss Davis. It was not like David Niven, who I did, who was in No Deposit No Return, was to me as big a star, I guess, or I think.
For sure.
But he was just a guy. He was just a total, got down with the kids and hanging out and talking. And again, I had a lot more scenes with him than with Betty Davis. But just different kind of personality, different kind of approach. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Fun times. And now I've spilled the beans, but I guess
that's a great story.
It's been a while, so I guess we're all safe.
Before I move on, I just have to ask one thing on that movie. Can you really consider yourselves a gang if your leader is named Dazzler?
Yes, I thought I was the leader. I was Muscles. Come on, Muscles.
I move on to you were in this show. I actually remember watching. You were regular on the Tony Randall show. Can you just a little bit of memories of him? He was great, but I don't know how he was personal.
He was great. He was tough. He was a tough guy. He meant well, but he was very. He was Tony Randall. He was very anal and very kind of, he would do a lot of he would freak out and he yelled at me a few times as a kid, and I was like, that's not cool. A 12-year-old, 13, I was like, and so we cleared that up kind of by the end of the first season. My mom had a good one-on-one with him, and he backed off pretty nicely, which was good. And that was the time my mom was transitioning into her other career, so she wasn't there on the set with me every day. She was opening her talent agency for kids. So it was a shifting time. But no, yeah, I mean, we ended up being really close, and we stayed in touch. We would send audio tapes to each other back and forth after we were out, for several years after. And he would send tapes of, he was really good friends with a famous piano player, like the most famous piano player of that era, and I can't remember his name now. And he'd send audio tapes of him playing and just different weird stuff, and we would just kind of back and forth that way, which is just so 80s. You know what I mean? It's so like 70s. It just doesn't happen anymore. So the lost art of sending tapes.
Well, speaking of 80s, we're going to go into one of the most fun movies of the 80s to me, Red Dawn. This is where the Soviet Union invaded the US. And I actually remember there being stories in the news when that movie came out, like, can this happen?
Right. Oh yeah. No, it was they played on that a lot. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of really like the last kind of project that I did as I was all the truth comes out. I was 17. And you need to be 18 to work. C. Thomas Howell had been emancipated, so he was 16 or 17 himself, but he didn't have to have a parent with him because he had taken the proficiency test or whatever. I finished high school a year early, so I was already out of high school, but I had not quite started college yet, so I was trying to work, and I needed to be 18, so I literally forged my birth certificate to say that I was a year older, in case anyone ever asked. No one ever asked. No one ever knew. I mean, they'd known me since I was, I hadn't worked a lot in those last couple of years, so people forget. They know, oh, is he 18? Oh, he's 18. No one ever asked, and I just went off and shot the movie and turned 18 while shooting in New Mexico, because that's what you do when you're a professional actor, right? You're just like, oh well, you just go and do it, and it was, yeah. So. That was a cool experience. It was one of my first really like thinking about the characters and thinking about what you're doing. I kind of say as a kid, most of the time I was just reading the lines, just like, it was like, just be natural, just act naturally. And I don't remember thinking about story arcs or thinking about really where my character is going and why, my motivations and things like that. I mean, I remember getting in touch with in the scenes and being in the moment of scenes growing up, and so that, and I knew what was good and I knew what worked, and obviously praise helps to let you know what's working and what's not. But that one was like, okay, I read the script and I'm like, oh this is a thing, this is a real movie. The original script was actually a lot better than the final kind of shooting script, in my opinion. It got rewritten quite a bit, and it was written by Kevin Reynolds, who did a bunch of big movies as a writer, and then John Milius kind of took it over and rewrote it, and it was still what it was. It was still good for that kind of genre and all that, but I just wasn't as John Milius wasn't, to me, as much of a actor director at all. Like, literally, he said to Patrick Swayze, one of the first days of shooting rehearsals, I'm going to be like the general and you be like my colonel, and I'll just tell you what, and then you go talk to the troops. And like, what? So we didn't get a whole lot of like acting directing at all from the director. It was it was Patrick being the older guy who was 8 years older, or 6 or 8 years older than all of us, and it was kind of letting him kind of work with it, which was kind of weird, but a lot of cool kids, a lot of fun times.
Yeah, some cast.
yeah, a lot of. I stayed in touch with a lot of them through the years. In fact, just got reconnected with Charlie Sheen after several years of not. Can you imagine? We weren't in touch all those crazy years. But he's actually doing really well, and he's just the nicest guy, really super sweet guy. Not just he obviously had some some wacky full tilt moments over this past decade or two, but he's seems to be doing really, really well. And we will text now and again and get back in touch. We're talking about doing a project together, and it's fun to revisit people as adults, after it's been so long. When you're at, it's like, whoa, okay, we have a whole different kind of approach, which is good.
What did you think of the remake?
I haven't seen the whole thing, to be honest with you. I saw bits of it. I was just like, oh, okay. I'd heard some things that sort of like, it's okay. It's not
Were
great.
you asked to cameo at all or no?
No, that's the other thing. Like, what the F? Like, really, guys? But I didn't reach out either to try to, muscle my way in. So.
Muscles, right?
Yeah, right.
You play in the group Band from TV. Is it the action figures, or is it still Band?
Yeah. It's a couple of bands. I had been doing music
with Greg Grunberg.
Yeah. My partner Greg and I started this band about 13 years ago. And he was on Heroes at the time, and he's been on a bunch of stuff in Star Wars and shows forever. He's had an amazing career and still working a lot. He got asked, we've been jamming, because actually we were in a band together back when we first met on the dating game.
Wow.
Yeah. I was doing casting. I was working as a production coordinator, or no, I was basically like working in the casting department. I was going to college. I was kind of changing careers and trying to work on some other things. And my friend at the time hired me to be her assistant during like run-throughs and tape days and things like that. And I hadn't really done a lot of reality or game shows and things, but I ended up having a lot of sort of a career in unscripted from that point on. Kind of sparked some stuff. That young boss of mine ended up being my wife, so we've been married for over 35 years. But basically, she brought me in, and this guy was signed in to be on the show. And he wrote drummer on his form as one of his, interests or one of his hobbies or skills. And I'm like, hey, you play drums? And I play bass. And so we started jamming back then. We had a band with our friend Scott Taylor called the Big Boy Combo, which I'm sure you all are familiar with the food. But anyway, we played for a couple of years. Yeah. We played for a couple of years doing that, a few years doing that. And I just stayed in touch. And then I had a trailer company many years later, and in the building we had an extra, our sound room, which was for mixes and stuff that we didn't use all that often. And so we had a PA in there and a drum kit, and so Greg and we started jamming again after several years, and then that's just that led to this thing where someone said to him, "Hey, why don't you get your celebrity band together?" Because somehow he mentioned that he had played with some other actors. And he called Hugh Laurie, and he called James Denton from Desperate Housewives, and Bob Guiney from The Bachelor, and Adrian Pasdar was also in Heroes with him, and a bunch. So it's been this kind of revolving troupe of actors and celebrities. Terry Hatcher came and joined us for several gigs. She did a few things in Vegas with us and in Canada, and it's been a really fun hobby to kind of be able to play and actually play for audiences and get paid, although most of the money goes to charity. It's been the band from TV has been primarily just a charity gig, a charity band. So all the money we get to split up, which is so cool for us to be able to give, because we can charge a lot of money for corporates and things, because it's celebrities, and it's like you're going to get 5 big celebrities that are all on big hit shows at the same time singing and playing music. It's like it's a cool concept, I think. I mean, it's kind of, and we only do covers, so it's not like people expect we're trying to sell new songs to people, or originals, because that's can be kind of annoying, as to see a band, you're like, well, they're playing the new stuff. So it's all covers. Since the early days, our friend Scott Grimes has joined. He's always been a friend, but do you remember Scott from childhood? He's a little younger than us, but he worked a lot. He was like on Party of Five and a few other things as a younger guy. But then as a young adult, he was on ER for a bunch of seasons. He was in Band of Brothers. He was in a bunch of other shows. For the last several years, he's been on the Family Guy as the voice of the son on Family Guy, and he's also on the Orville, which is another of Seth's.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Seth's show. He is like crazy singer, like best singer I've ever worked with, and that's saying a lot. But no, he's like one of those guys. When he was a little kid from Canada, he toured with Michael Jackson as an opening. He would start singing behind a curtain, and they would hear and they think it was Michael, and then they reveal that it was this tiny little 8-year-old redheaded kid from Canada. He's kind of a voice of an angel guy. So we've had a lot of really fun people come and join us, and again, they'll come and they'll go, but a lot of times we'll bring them back for gigs. So it's been a fun
your company now, Bandwagon Media, that you have a great. Could you just tell us a little bit about that and what your responsibilities are, what you do?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I got into from doing live game shows and unscripted and stuff like that for a bit. Then I got into post-production. I actually was on Alf, the show Alf, with our good friend
Steve Lamar.
Steve Lamar, thank you. I was gonna say no, because I had worked with on the Tony Randall show. I had worked with the one of the executive producer, Tom Patchett.
Yes, that's right.
Who hired me to be a PA. I was like, I was literally just. I think I might have gotten married. I was married young, married at 22. But I was like kind of out of college and kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I took a job as a PA on Alf, and it ended up being a really good trajectory. From there, got into post-production, and then became an editor of primarily movie trailers for about 20 years. I did movie marketing and commercials and things for ads for movies. Universal, back at different companies. I had a company for a while doing the trailers where Greg and I got the music thing going. And then went back to Universal as a producer, kind of running the in-house department. I had a 2-year gig, was a contract, and I was just fried. It was like, it can be a tough kind of grueling business, like any business can, but this it really kind of was like, whoa. So I kind of, right around the same time was growing some other projects with Greg, and we were getting some gigs. And so I was able to transition into a production company. So here I co-direct with Greg a lot of things, or we'll each do our own things, produce, write. It's everything from commercials to TV shows to movies. We do our band stuff here. We've got a live stream situation, so we can do a bunch of different, streaming projects. It's really a fun, creative space. We bought this building about 8 years ago, and it's the idea to grow into it a little bit. So we have our band here. We have other renters that are friends and colleagues on things. And recently just got a new renter, I want to say, but he's a really good friend named Rob Pryor, who, if you don't know, look him up. He is crazy bananas artist, painter. And he took one of our insert stages and turned it into an art studio. And it's like, we pulled all the blocked off walls, or covers off the windows. So now he has some natural light to work with, but he has a bunch of apprentices, and they come in and they paint, and he does he's big at like the Comic-Con circuit. So he'll go to Comic-Cons and live paint stuff, and he's blown up. He's crazy. And it's just fun to have cool artistic people around doing different stuff. I mean, he also directs and all kinds of other projects does projects in production, but his main thing is a painter. So it's kind of cool.
Oh man, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's fun. You gotta come next time you're in town. You gotta come check it out.
100%.
Love
to see it.
Speaking of cons, do you ever do any cons or Disney events?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, I actually zero, except for the band stuff. And then about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, my sister, Tracy, who's worked our whole childhood as well on everything, the Little House on the Prairie and a bunch of other shows and commercials. And we actually did a episode of Streets of San Francisco together, I think, was one of the things we did. Anyway, she, one of her kind of last jobs that she did was Friday the 13th, part 3 in 3D, where she got brutally murdered, which was awesome to see. Which I actually boycotted that movie at all because she had a topless scene. So I was like, nah, I'm good. I don't need to see it at all. But I mean, come on, that's not cool. But that movie. She was like her last movie. She was going off to college, going to University of Michigan. It was one of those golden eras of residuals slash, payouts where she literally got like it paid for college for like the next 2 years, 3 years. So she just, they like it got re-released and then it got put on TV and you get another big check. Whereas Disney stuff, it's like, you just never got paid for it, which is again, not complaining, just mentioning, just recounting.
Not a judgment, just an observation.
Exactly. But yeah. So that's Tracy got asked, and she's done a few of these because I've found, you'll find anybody that's in any kind of sci-fi or horror, there's a much more voracious audience for that. Like those are the people that go to the cons. Those are the people that show up, want an autograph, they want to meet. And so I only had one like horror thing, which was
I was going to ask you about that.
Salem's Lot. Yeah, it was the only kind of thing that I really that fit into the genre. Unless you want to call Return for Witch Mountain sci-fi, which I guess you kind of could, but not really.
Not really.
Not really. I mean, it fits into the Disney. But because of Salem's Lot, I got asked to join her to do this like Chiller Con in New Jersey, and we flew out there and did sign some autographs, and it was a fun weekend, mainly just to hang out with my sister for the weekend, to be honest. But it was also great to see people that remembered a TV movie from 30 years ago that was like, they would get excited to see me. I'm like, seriously? Really?
Anticipating the YouTube comments. Did you meet Stephen King?
Oh, no, never met Stephen King. Toby Hooper directed that one. So that was kind of cool. He ended up doing a lot of shit. But yeah, actually that weekend, part of the reason they even brought me was because David Soul was supposed to come that weekend as well. So it was going to be a little reunion thing, which they love at cons. They love to get, groups together so they can sell it as a reunion. And
Kim and I did Chiller one year.
Oh, you did? Okay, yeah.
We did. It's a fun, that's a really fun convention, by the way.
It really is.
You did one of the more fun ones. It's kind of intimate, but it is big. Yeah. A lot of good major collectors there. So yeah, totally. I get it.
So we did that thing and we had a blast. And David Soul didn't show up, ended up not showing.
No.
Yeah, he wasn't doing well that way. He was ill or something, which happens all the time at those.
Oh, sure.
It's just part of the, there's always schedule permitting. That's how we sell our band, by the way. It's like we have all the faces, of all these celebrities, and it's like schedule permitting. Because if somebody books a movie, they're not going to take 4 days to fly to somewhere Chicago to do a Comic-Con gig and not get paid. And it's understandable. Yeah. And you can't leave if you're that's what you do. It's just part of the drill.
Funny, I did reach out to David Soul to appear on this show, actually, but we'll see. But we'll see. But Brad, I know you have to run, but I thank you, and on behalf of myself and I thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely.
To show up today. Really fun stories. I have 1,000 more we could ask you, and you're welcome back anytime.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. It was great to see you, and I'm so excited for this movie. I really enjoyed it. Tracy and I came to see the screening. Of the Dear Ike film, and it's just so I know it wasn't your production, but obviously it's all about you, and you come off so well. It was a delicate dance of like, wait, why did this guy not ever call the guy? But you didn't know, so it gives you a good out, because we all know you're like, nah, F him.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I think it's a lovely film. I'm quite proud to be a part of it. I thought he did a terrific job with interesting subject matter, and it's hard. We won't go into that now. We got other sources for it, but it was great seeing you and Tracy, of course. And hopefully I'll be back out again soon and come see your gigs, because your digs, not your gigs, your digs, because that sounds so much fun. But anyway, thanks so much for this. This was a blast. Always good to see you.
Awesome, guys.
And we'll catch you again soon.
Again, on behalf of myself and Ike Eisenmann, this has been Pop Culture Retro. Thank you to Brad. And remember, as always, please subscribe. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.